specialist area of autism is specifically in females with autism. And that's what I'm going to try and talk to you about tonight. I'm going to try and condense it all into about 20 minutes, so I might talk a bit fast, going to kind of a wrap with it. But I'm going to leave questions at the end for a lot of time, because I answer questions better than I talk. So we can do that. So I just wanted to start off by giving you some statistics to give you a little bit of a taster of the kind of issues that we're facing. So it's thought that up to 1% of the population may have an undiagnosed ASD, which is autism spectrum condition. This is on top of the 1% that we already know do have an ASD. And the average gender ratio of this is around 4 males to every 1 female, although this changes the further up and down the spectrum you go. So when you get to the lower end of the spectrum, where individuals have intellectual impairments and things like that, the gap closes in quite a lot, so we have about 2 males to every 1 female. And then at the higher end of the spectrum, where we have individuals with Asperger's and normal to above normal intelligence, it widens massively, so there's around 6 males to every 1 female. And this has led many to believe that autism is predominantly a male condition, and that for females to be affected for it, they have to be hit a lot more severely, basically. But what we're discovering now, actually, is that females are diagnosed a lot later than males are. There's quite a few studies on this now. So this one is 1/5 of females diagnosed before 11 compared to over half of boys, and 42% potentially misdiagnosed with other mental illnesses. So, when we think about autism, these are some of the kind of stereotypical things I think a lot of people think of. So as Helena said, Rain Man, who has been giving us unrealistic expectations of our savant abilities since 1988. I think anyone else in this room with autism has also wondered why they can't remember in so much detail. Also we have Sheldon Cooper from the Big Bang Theory, and Christopher from The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, which is now a play. Incidentally, the author of this, Mark Haddon, never actually researched autism before he wrote this character. So he wrote this character just based on his own stereotypes and thoughts about what autism looked like. And it's for those reasons Christopher is a very male stereotypical character. And then my personal favourite is The Undateables, which is an awful show, where disabled people are set up on their first dates, and they're filmed going on their first dates with either other disabled people or people without disabilities as well on the show. And typically they tend to use quite stereotypical male autistic characters. And I think probably the production team did it for good reasons, but since calling it The Undateables, it kind of went downhill a little bit. Every year, I have to admit, I've been contacted by the production team of The Undateables and informed that they have a lovely young man that they think I'd match really well with, who has autism as well. And every year I've responded the same thing, thank you for thinking of me, I'm still gay. Although I have to admit that last year I was a little bit gutted because the guy had his own swimming pool. So yeah, that's no problem. Apart from this comedic kind of view of autism, we also have a more serious view of autism, which is, if you read the Daily Mail, computer hackers, high school shooters. If you read an article on a high school shooter, guaranteed somewhere in that it's going to say he has autistic type behaviours. This is just the image that I think the media feeds us all. So how about this image? These females are all successful models, film stars, Olympic champions. They all have autism. They were all diagnosed fairly late in their lives. And yeah, it's just a side to autism I don't think you see. So even Susan Boyle wasn't diagnosed until her 50s, which I know seems kind of impossible in hindsight if you saw her on the X Factor. But it just goes to show how difficult it is. So this is my gender ratio. So these are my 4 brothers, and this is me looking really special. None of my brothers are diagnosed with autism, and I'm the only female in the family, and I'm diagnosed with autism. So just goes to show that the gender ratios that we're aware of aren't always the case, and this kind of exists. So a bit more about myself before I bore you with my research. I was selectively mute between the ages of 3 to 6. I wouldn't speak at all outside the house or to anyone that wasn't within my immediate family. So I was an incredibly anxious child as well, and the thought of others hearing my voice terrified me. So actually when I got to 14, I dropped out of school. I've been doing fairly well until then because I learnt to fit in by camouflaging, social camouflaging, which Helena mentioned earlier. So I was misdiagnosed throughout my teens, my early 20s, and I was finally diagnosed with Asperger's at the age of 23. And now I'm doing a PhD looking at why women like myself go undiagnosed for so long. So, this is the main culprit. And I apologise to anyone here from the Cambridge Research Centre for this slide. I've made it slightly nicer for you. So the extreme male brain theory was by, I won't tell you what was on the previous slide. The extreme male brain theory by Simon Baron Cohen. So the idea of this is that autism is an extreme form of the male brain. So technically, so males are thought to have quite a systemising type brain and be less empathic. So the idea is that autism is just an extreme form of this. And because of that, it's thought that females have a protective factor against autism. Because if you're a male, it doesn't take much just to like push you over the edge into autism. If you're a female, it's going to take a really big kind of push, really. So that is the idea behind it. However, a lot of the evidence that I found anyway for this is that it's quite controversial and contradictory evidence, mostly driven by the same research team. I'll show you. So a different and better theory, in my opinion, is the female masking effect theory. And this basically says that women are not less likely to have the condition, they're just less likely to have been picked up earlier, and doctors are less likely to select autism in view of other possible conditions. So the idea is that females may have their own kind of phenotype of autism, which means that the traits that they have may be slightly different. So the kind of view that we have of autism and the set of traits we have could actually be different in females. It's also possible that females may have been misdiagnosed with other conditions. There's a lot of research actually also going on by the Cambridge research team, just to pick them up. So that anorexia, a lot of females actually with anorexia could also have autism. And there's also the option, as Helena was saying, that females may purposely camouflage their impairments. And this is certainly something that I did growing up, learning to socially mimic others, for example, learning to make eye contact, learning how to start conversations, learning how to just move your hands in the right way, basically. So, just to have a quick look at different types of impairment. So the same kind of core impairments for both genders, so problems with social and emotional impairments, language and communication impairments, and then also problems with inflexibility of thought. But for males, there's additional issues with hyperactivity, more repetitive stereotypical behaviours, and also more challenging behaviours. So a lot of these kids, the males with autism, are being picked up a lot earlier because their behaviour in school is a lot more problematic. Females, on the other hand, seem to have a lot more issues with anxiety and depression. They're a lot quieter, for sure. They seem to also have better socialising ability and social mimicking and just more of a motivation, basically. On some tests of friendship, actually, females with autism score as highly as females without autism. So it definitely seems to be different kind of impairments for both genders. And this is just talking typically, because there'll also be a lot of males that fit this category that have autism, and there'll also be a lot of females that won't fit this and will have had challenging behaviours. So this is just talking typically what we're seeing. So my research is based on this theory, and this theory is that autism in females manifests differently to males. Females with autism are more motivated and have better social skills than autistic males, again typically. To compensate for their impairments, they learn to socially mimic others. As a result, professionals are unable to detect the common signs of autism, and females with autism suffer from more mental health conditions and/or are being misdiagnosed. So what we did was we contacted every head of department in the UK, and we sent out a survey which was basically the autism quotient, which looks at autistic traits along the spectrum. We also looked at the empathy quotient, which looks at individuals' empathy skills, and we also looked at psychiatric diagnoses. So we had over 10,000 responses to this survey, which is great, and participants were put into one of 4 groups. Sorry, that should be 3 groups. I'll put that on. So, depending on the AQ scores and the ASC diagnosis. So, those with a diagnosed ASC obviously put in the ASC diagnosed group. Those who scored high on the AQ but didn't have a diagnosis were put into the potential ASC undiagnosed group, and then those with no ASC as well. Sorry, I did warn you this bit was going to be a bit more boring. So these are my findings. And yeah, this slide's a little bit complicated, so I'll just run over it. So our primary findings were actually that females were diagnosed significantly later than males. So I think the average age for females was around 18, and the average age for males was around 11. So there was quite a wide gap between. There's a lot of years there where these females aren't being diagnosed, and kind of, if you think about it, kind of the critical years, the kind of puberty years, where they don't have a diagnosis and they're not being supported. We also found a high number of females in the potentially undiagnosed ASC group. Also a lot of males as well, so not to miss that, but there were significantly more females. So what else do we find? So looking at mental health diagnosis, we found that those with diagnosed ASC were significantly likely to suffer from more conditions, followed by those with potential ASC and also those with no ASC. The kind of conditions that were more common were depression, generalised anxiety disorder, and social anxiety disorder. And this kind of fits with previous research because there's a lot of research saying that individuals with autism are more susceptible to mental health conditions and that their suicide risk is a lot greater as well. This kind of all fits into that picture. Something interesting we found and unexpected we found was that on our empathy scores. So the empathy quotient, which basically scores up to around 80, I think it is, a cut-off of 30. So if you score below 30, you're considered to have an empathy impairment. Okay, above that, kind of normal range. So we found that males and females with autism both had similar levels of impairment in this empathy, a cognitive empathy. I know it's quite controversial to talk about empathy with autism, but this is strictly cognitive empathy. But then the females in the potential ASC group who potentially were going undiagnosed, they seem to perform a lot better on this test. Still impaired, but they seem to have a bit of an advantage over the males and also over the individuals that were diagnosed. So we're thinking that this empathy advantage could be the crux of why females with autism go undiagnosed and how they're better able to camouflage their impairments. So if you're thinking about social mimicking and things, the ability to empathise with others would be quite important in learning how to look at other people's behaviour and copy other people's behaviour. So this is where our research is going next. It's going to look a little bit more further at this empathy advantage and also the social mimicking aspects of females on the spectrum. So, just to give a little overview, these aren't mine, these are from a book looking at specific female traits. So, different kind of unique traits for females with autism. So, females may have more androgynous traits, they may be highly educated but will have struggled with social aspects. They can be shy or mute, may not have a strong sense of self, may be emotionally immature and emotionally sensitive, may enjoy fiction and reading and have a rich imaginary world. Anxiety and fear are predominant emotions and often prefer the company of animals. So again, this is all very stereotypical, typical kind of stuff, and it's not going to apply to everyone, but this is kind of the picture we're seeing. And people often ask me why we need to identify all these females. If they've been going their lives for so long undiagnosed and successfully living their lives, why do they need a diagnosis? But the issue is really with support and mental health issues. We've seen in this population there's a really high risk factor to mental health. Yeah, and it's just really important to make sure if they're supported from a young age, they can get the kind of help they need at school and in mental health services to reach their full potential, basically. So, if hopefully you've understood some of that. If not, I write a lot of it on my blog, and I've actually created a 30-minute documentary specifically on females with autism, speaking from themselves about their experiences, which you can find here.